Well, I mean, I actually kind of liked where you bringing up how you like to evolve a franchise because that kind of reminds me of the Curse of Evangelion. Since I know you're a fan of that. Uh, so have you been watching any of the like I don't want to say the new movies, but I mean the
Yeah.
movies are relatively old. But I kind of like the commentary the movies were making. So,
Um,
mhm.
so we just marathoned all four movies 2 weeks ago.
Nice. Mhm.
Um, I freaking hated movie three so much.
Mhm.
Now it's the coolest because it's
Oh
like
yeah.
basically Trigger. It's
Mhm.
basically Gurren Lagann, but Evangelion.
Mhm.
But I hated
Yep.
that movie so much because one of the things I love about Ava is the general aesthetic of, while they're not
Mhm.
mechs or anything, everything looks like it functions and everything has a reason. And then
Yep.
when you hit three, Asuka freaking morphs her Ava into a fucking cat. I was like, what the
Yep.
hell is that
What the
about?
hell is this?
Like, that's not to say that a cat Ava is not cool, but
I know.
that's not
Mhm.
like why I'm here, you know?
Yeah.
Like
Mhm.
if you want to make like Evangelion Shippuden or whatever,
Mhm.
fine, do that. Let's go crazy, you know. But if this is like Rebuild and your first two movies were basically the series and everything was
Yep.
hard sci-fi, then I don't
Mhm.
want this fantastic sci-fi in the middle, because then suddenly you watch movie four and you're like, where did it all go? Like
Oh, yeah.
suddenly it's gone. Was that a fever dream?
Mhm.
Was like what happened? Like did I had to look around, like did I saw
The
that, right? Am
the
I the only
cat
one that saw
happened,
that?
right? That
Yeah.
wasn't okay, okay.
Like the biggest thing, my friends give me a lot of shit for this because I was like, as much as I hated movie three and how stupid some
Mhm.
of that stuff was, the one thing that I kept pointing out, I was like, where the fuck did sorry, not Ritsuko, Misato get that jacket? Like, you expect me to believe that after basically second impact,
Mhm.
Misato went out to a store somewhere in Tokyo shopping
Mhm.
after she left Nerve
Yep.
and formed Big Willie or whatever it was
Mhm,
called.
whatever, yeah. I'm lost under second organization too.
And she was like, "Yeah, you know what? This jacket looks badass.
Yep, we're
I'm
getting
gonna get
this.
this." Yeah, and I was just like, I don't know, man. Like look at this world that
Yeah.
they're in. Like, where
Mhm.
did she get this jacket? Did they sew it? Like, did they sit down and make it?
Mhm.
Like, not only that, but it was also a hat and it matched.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? And then
Mhm.
they just changed her character. Like, again, I like evolving characters, but suddenly it was just like, oh, she's just Shinji's dad again. Like,
Yeah.
why? Like, the whole point
Mhm.
of her character was she was nudging Shinji to get in the fucking robot the entire
Yep.
time. Like, she's just get in the damn robot, Shinji, and dragging his ass in the end of Evangelion when he's just at his
Mhm.
most pathetic and worthless. I hate
Oh,
Shinji,
yeah.
and
Oh,
so it's just
Shinji's
like
an ass, yeah.
shoving him in
Mhm.
and being creepy with Shinji all the time. And I'm like, that's who Misato is, right? Like,
Mhm.
in 11 years, you're just expecting me to believe that she just turned into his dad. Like, oh no, this is dumb,
No.
stupid, and
It's
I
like
absolutely hated it.
mhm.
Garbage, absolute garbage.
I just want to say, like, is that cat mech like grooming itself? Like, what's going on right now?
It's they never
Mhm.
touch it again.
No.
The only thing they do is the rods that come out of the back in movie four,
Mhm.
which is like, I guess whatever, you know. At that point in time, it's everything got thrown out the window. You're flying in a giant, what's it
Weird
called?
Ava ship.
The Intrigon or whatever it
Something
is.
like that, yeah.
The well, no, I was saying, like, in the,
Mhm.
not Godzilla, but in those kaiju type movies, there's that big submarine that they fly around. I forget what it's called. It's not the Intrigon, but it's something like that.
Oh, what the hell is that thing?
But
Mhm.
yeah, it's like suddenly you have a flying ship. Like, I think it's cool, like, that it's a Ava and that they're using
Mhm.
battleships as armor and they're just like throwing them around and stuff. I'm like, that's cool. They're playing with gravity,
Oh,
but
yeah.
it's just
Mhm.
like, I don't know, like, I guess whatever. At that point, I didn't really sign up for that, but whatever.
No,
Hmm.
no. I mean, it's just it was hard to follow up the series, to be completely honest. Or the series, or I guess like even like the end of Evangelion for the movie was. I don't know, I loved the end of Evangelion as
Like,
opposed to
but
the new series.
but it's not though. Like they've done
Mhm,
so much other fiction that takes place in that world that's
mhm,
all new. Like Iron Maiden for the Saturn, and some of the other story games they have, which are brand new stories within the same world. They
mhm.
have the fucking the best Shinji ever from Super Robot Wars, who has a positive role model. Like he's got a positive
Oh.
father figure in that.
Mhm.
Um, it's another mecha pilot from a giant robot series, and I'm forgetting the name right now. But he's like, Shinji, you're the best. You could do it. Positive role. So Shinji becomes this amazing pilot that wants to pilot Ava Unit One, and he's really good. And it's just day and night. And it's like,
Mhm,
first off, if you're gonna be making a movie, why are you retreading ground? Now, I understand that it's very popular in
mhm.
Japanese anime to make the big budget, and you need retell the series in a couple movies, and then you
Yep.
have like something unique. I understand that. That's fine.
Mhm.
But why can't we get that story? Like, you can tell basically the same story, but I want to see what happens when Shinji does want to get into the
Yeah.
robot. I want to see
Mhm,
when his dad is like, walking with him in the park and playing ball. Like, what does that do to his psyche? To
mhm.
what happens with all that? Because even then, it doesn't have to be a positive story. You can have this whole
Yep.
positive thing that when he finds out that it's his mom, like, what happens to that
Mhm.
character? What happens there? Instead of just being a little fucking asshole the entire time, and
Yeah.
just like, this is
Mhm,
not about you, Shinji. This is about saving the world. Like, get over it.
mhm.
Um, where's that story? Where's the story? They could have just focused it on what's her name, the European one. I can't remember her name right.
Oh, Asuka.
No, the other one,
Oh, yeah, the newer one. Oh,
Marai,
fuck, I don't remember her name
whatever.
either.
Like, she's amazing. Like, she's cool. I
Mhm.
really like her.
Yep. Mhm.
That fight scene she had, fantastic. I want to know more about that. We didn't have to do this, but yeah, those wounds are still fresh, basically. So
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I almost feel like the director would have rather done more what you talked about, but I just remember, like, when you see that first part, I think it's in movie 3 where Shinji wakes up and, like, they have like, the kids have not aged one bit,
yeah,
and she mentions it's the curse of the Avas, and they don't really elaborate on that at all. It's like, they don't really say, "Oh, it's just a curse
it's
of the Ava." They're just little, and I think I've heard that it was the director's commentary that more or less he's expected to kind of do the same thing over again and only update and change a little bit at a time. And what he's allowed to update is usually like some like BS like cat
yeah.
robot.
Yeah, that
Mhm.
was just an excuse for people to feel okay because they're
Yep.
in underage bodies, but now they're
Mhm.
28 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
That's all that was, honestly. Because
Mhm.
if you notice, after at movie 3 and 4, like, they upped that cheesecake factor a lot. There was so many butt
Yep.
shots after that. It was just like, it was insane.
Mhm.
It was to a point where we were just all noticing it. We were just like, wow, that
No, it's
Asuka just doesn't wear
everywhere.
clothes anymore. She's just naked all the time. But you know what? It's
Mhm.
okay because she's 28, and so it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, whatever. Um,
28 going on 14.
but I like his work. I like the original Evangelion. I like
Mhm.
his Shin Godzilla was amazing,
Oh
and I'm
yeah.
looking forward to Shin Ultraman and Shin Kamen Rider.
Mhm.
I love his work. I just felt like whatever happened, and I think that this train was way too large for him, and
Mhm.
yeah, basically that he couldn't control it anymore, and probably, I don't know, whatever at that point. It's Ava's cool, and he good for him. He got to tell the story. That's all I care about with creations, is that they got to tell their stories. I either like it or I don't, for the most part.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, I'm super happy and proud for any creator that's able to just express themselves and tell us a unique, brand new story. Um, we don't get to do that very often, and
Mhm.
we don't live long enough to be able to just do whatever we want. So you got to pick and choose what you got,
Mhm.
and you got to go with it and own it all the way through. So, fantastic,
Hmm.
great job.
It does sound like his third movie though was directed by Tommy Wiseau, and this is me not having watched it.
There was chunks of it that felt like they were missing. Like, it was just like,
Mhm.
I don't know. It was just jumping from scene to scene, and it was just like, hey, look,
Yeah.
this is cool. All right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, I don't want to shift gears too hard here,
Mhm.
but you've mentioned it a couple times about how you're not a big fan of Ghostbusters 2.
Mhm.
And Joe and I both did our best Midwest lip biting there for a second, because we're not like we're not going to go to the grave about our opinions on Ghostbusters 2, but there are some things about it that we thought were maybe improvements over the original, or
Sure.
maybe
Mhm.
maybe just a little bit better in certain things. Like some of the comedic aspects of it, I thought were very, very strong. You know,
Mhm.
the score and the soundtrack of 2, some aspects are good. I would say the soundtrack is a little bit better, but the score, it takes me completely out of it, right?
Mhm.
Oh, yeah. Compared to the first one, the
So
first score is just beautiful.
Yeah,
yeah.
it was
So
amazing.
Mhm.
so I mean, I want to know, Jesse, like what brings you to like the other side of the spectrum on DB2? And
Mhm.
It
yeah,
was the blatant marketing and
Yeah.
kiddification of the whole thing. Like
Mhm.
I mentioned before, it wasn't so much that they stopped smoking; it was that everything was clean.
Mhm.
yeah,
Like New York is, there's just something about New York in the '80s, right? And it has to do with the lighting, it has to do with the clothing, it has to do with the film that you shoot on, the camera that you shoot with. It's noisy, it's gritty, it's dirty. It's New
Mhm.
York,
Mhm.
and so Ghostbusters 2 was very clean. Everything was really well lit. And this happens a lot with a lot of sequels. Suddenly they get a
Mhm.
budget and it's just like, oh, well, this is what happens when you can actually afford someone to come in and do cinematography and lighting. Like, okay, things become easy to read, but sometimes that's the charm of the original. And it's not just
Mhm.
Ghostbusters. There's plenty others like, Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street 1 and 2 are pretty solid. Nightmare on Elm Street 1 is
Mhm.
amazing. And then once you
yeah.
pass that, garbage, absolute garbage. And it's
Yep.
just like there's some
Completely
cool
agree.
stuff in there. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, yeah.
The
Mhm.
Dream Warriors and all that stuff. I can pick and choose things I like, but it's not the same. It's stopped being a scary movie. When you see Freddy
Mhm.
walking down the hallway and he's just dragging his fingers along like they never focused on his face, and then suddenly he just
Mm.
became PG-13 Freddy. All the kids loved him. Same thing happened with RoboCop. RoboCop
Mhm.
2 still had some grit to it, but suddenly he's a toy now. Rambo was
Yeah.
kind of almost the opposite. Rambo 1 is brilliant, and he doesn't kill anyone, and in Rambo 2 he's just killing everyone. And that goes against his entire, because now they're just like, he's an action
Mhm.
star. Alien, I love Alien, and I love Aliens, fantastic movies,
Mhm.
but they're so polar opposites of each other. One's an action movie, one's a horror.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, it happens
Mhm.
a lot, and sometimes it works. Sometimes it's fantastic. You get an Aliens,
Yeah.
sometimes you get a Terminator 2, but then
Mhm.
other times you get, whatever happened after Nightmare on Elm Street 2, you get the kiddification of Friday the 13th, kiddification of all this stuff.
Mhm.
And I feel that happened with Ghostbusters. Now, I say I hate it, right? It could be a bit dramatic. I could watch it. It's fine, whatever. It's not the first
Mhm.
movie I put on. I'd rather. I mean, it's my same feelings with Ninja Turtles 2. I hate Secret of the Ooze, uh, more
Mm,
so than I hate Ghostbusters 2. But basically, it's the branding. Like, again, I was like, why
Mhm.
why do they have that logo on their car, right? Like, why
Mhm.
is that?
yeah.
They went from being absolutely broke to suddenly, being able to do this whole spectacle again. It was like, what? That makes no
Yep.
sense. um
Mhm.
They sold out,
yeah.
man.
Yeah. You get that whole feeling that Peter didn't, or Bill Murray didn't really want to be in the movie because
Yeah.
he's in costume for the last scene. He's not in
Mhm.
his suit the entire time. um
Yeah, for the exception of the
Montage.
montage.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you're right though. You are right. Like he's almost completely out of costume the entire time. He's also
mhm.
like barely wearing the proton pack outside of the
Yep.
courtroom or the final scenes. Like, yeah, I mean, and to be fair, their proton packs, one of the reasons why he even agreed to come back was he said, I need you to reduce the weight of the original proton pack. Otherwise, I'm not here. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
I get that part. I think for me, like the stuff that doesn't make sense about the movie, because I like GB2 for what it is. But some of the elements didn't seem very well balanced. Where like in the first movie, the horror elements or the spookiness of it, right? That vibe, pretty consistent throughout. You're not really breaking anything in terms of the tone. But then in GB2, like you mentioned, the kidification parts of it, then you've got some pretty funny one-liners, and like the comedy, like it's really well done in certain aspects of it. And then suddenly you're in a subway tunnel and you see heads on pikes, and you're
Yeah.
going, we just made this about kids for a minute. Now I've got
Mhm.
something horrifying that doesn't even touch anything in terms of intensity from one. Like,
Yeah.
that's me. It's like we've got constant like just it's juxtaposed in a lot of ways, and so
I don't know.
that's why I would disagree with some of the choices they made.
I mean, taking the puppy way is still far more traumatizing than the heads on the spikes.
Let's take away the puppy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Like Ghostbusters 1 had a lot of dark humor to it. It just did, you know. Yeah, Ghostbusters 2 tonally, like I didn't like their ghost designs, you know. It's just everything got fat and cartoonish. Part
Yeah.
1 was very, very creepy, but you're right. Like suddenly, you know, you had all the Titanic people showing up, and it's like, well, better late than never, right? Uh,
Yep.
yeah, it was all over the place. I hated the fact that they controlled the Statue of Liberty with the NES Advantage. It was just like,
Yeah.
all right, you know, that's the type of stuff that I hate.
Yep. Mhm.
But it's but you know, it's
Who had the
still.
time to design this?
I mean, I love the slime blowers. Like I think the slime blowers are fantastic.
Mhm.
Just the design work that went into that was just amazing. The upgraded PK meters and all the updated stuff was nice. I don't. That's my least favorite Ecto, but you know, I understand if they're trying to make a statement that says, "Hey, we're back. They did it." I just have a whole bunch of other questions when it comes to it. Um, that's why, you know, it was important for me to strip back the Ecto One to kind of have a little bit of both. He has the warning tape on it and stuff like that from that aspects of it and things like that. But man, it's such a shitty feeling too. Like I feel the pain of the set designers and everything, all the people that did all the concept work and all that in the movie, because you work so hard on a product regardless of its outcome, and then people just shit on it, you know, within 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Like we
Mhm.
worked 3 years on that Ghostbuster game, and then we put it out, and immediately it was received very well by the fans. But you'll always
Yeah.
get those guys that are just like the
Yeah.
hubcaps aren't exact. Oh, like that's where I'm like, it's been 8 years or whatever. They've
Mhm.
changed hubcaps. It's okay. It's all right. You will live with
Yep.
another iteration,
Mhm.
you know. And I wanted to go even further. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do that still respects, you know, like it still respects everything. You know, we had to make the caddy, you know, nice and shiny. You know, we couldn't
Mhm.
represent the caddy old and busted. I mean, it does get broken in the game, but you know, that's why
Yeah.
it's real nice and taken care of. I mean, granted, if I had a caddy like that, I would take care of it for sure. Um, but I was ready to just move on too. Like, man, we were so ready to make a sequel that wasn't based around the original cast either, because we set it up to where,
Mhm.
hey, you're gonna start your own
Yeah.
franchise somewhere, and we
Yeah.
had some pretty big ideas for that, like going out to Chicago and stuff like that. Um, to where, you know, we would just start over, you know, and just have a new cast. And you know, now it's like, you know, 1999 or 1998. What does that mean?
Mhm.
You know, what does that mean for the Ghostbusters? Does that mean that they're going to, you know, have a different car? And if they have a different car, what is it going to be, right? um you know, I like the SUV that they had in the comics or the game. I can't remember. I thought that was fine.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
literally just about to
Yeah.
mention
Mhm.
a Ford Explorer Ecto, because yeah, that's what a lot of like you see the SUV turn in some of the
Mhm.
media. Yeah, and sorry, Joe, I cut you off, but yeah,
No, no, I was agreeing with you. Yeah, it was definitely the comics they brought it up because yeah, there was a competing Ghostbuster team for a while, and then eventually they just get absorbed into the main team. They just keep the Explorer, but
I
mhm.
mean, I would have done one of those city vans, you know, the vans that you run
Mhm.
around and do errands in, right? They
Oh
got a
yeah.
huge capacity in the back.
Yeah.
They have a side door. That's where you put your
Mhm.
proton packs and everything. The back, you can put a mini containment unit back there. You know, give it a U-Haul
Yeah.
trailer or whatever for some other stuff.
Get
Like
you a Ford Transit. Come on, what are you thinking?
yeah. I think it is a
Mhm.
transit that I'm thinking of, the
Yeah.
big, like,
Yeah.
ugly
Yep.
things.
Yep.
Yep.
Like, who cares?
Mhm.
You know, I want to explore that. You know, I want to explore Ghostbusters are out in the Southwest. You know, you got all these
Mhm.
deserts with all this crazy stuff. You know, what happens out there? You know, got all these ghost towns. What are they driving around in? They're not driving around in a caddy. They're driving around in something that can go over dirt
Mhm.
and stuff. You know, there's just a whole lot of things that can be explored. But the problem with most fandoms is they
Mhm.
don't want to move on from the past, and
yeah.
it's always
Mhm.
met with just this. this hesitance on either side, and so the studio makes something different. The fans hate it, so then they're like, okay, we want to make the same, and then the fans hate it because it's just the same.
Not
And so you
yeah.
just never freaking win.
Mm-hmm.
Never win.
Well, hey, if you make a Ghostbusters in the Southwest Theater game, I can guarantee you there are 3 people here that will be playing it.
Yeah.
Ghostbuster
So-
Cowboys.
I don't know.
Ghostbusters on horseback. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man.
Because like I mean, why even restrict ourselves to the Southwest? Like, what is it
Yeah.
like in Ireland, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's Ireland, right? What's going on over there?
Yeah.
One of the most haunted places on earth, right? Like, Scotland, Ireland, all those areas. What does it mean to be a Ghostbuster over there, where you can't have a vehicle as large as a caddy going around the streets, right?
Imagine the Great Wall
Yeah.
and the
Like-
ghosts that were buried into it as they built it. Terrifying. By the way, if you need a model for an overweight Filipino man for that game, I'm your man. I'm right there.
I was watching Ghost Hunters International one day, just out of curiosity. I like Ghost Hunters. It was fun when it started, but then Ghost Hunters International, I was like, the audacity that we have to go to another country
Oh yeah.
and talk to their ghosts in English. I'm like, they're like, who are you? What's your name? And they're like, we're recording their EVPs, and they're like, look, he answered me. I'm like, bitch, no, he didn't. He fucking doesn't understand English. Ghosts don't learn. Like, were you speaking like, some of the ancient dialects? Like, you have to. But it's watching that. It's just like, this is so stupid.
You get a Rosetta Stone in the afterlife. It's fine.
Completely. You're dead. You've got a lot of time on your hands. You start taking classes in English.
I'm gonna pick up another language. I think. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got time.
I've got eternity.
It's I had all these wild ideas that I wanted to explore with Ghostbusters. I wanted to leave the city. I wanted to go out to northern New York, to the apple orchards and all that stuff. Like, what is it like being out there? And so I had this level that I was pitching. Obviously, we stayed in New York, so all that stuff got thrown out. But it was in the beginning phases where we were just like, well, what is this game, right? And we were just pitching ideas. And I had this idea of what happens if something happens up north and you have to leave, kind of like in Ninja Turtles, where they leave the city and they go out to the countryside. What does it mean to have to go out there and hunt, right? It's a whole different environment. And there was one scenario that I was saying, well, what if you, since this was supposed to be around Halloween time, I go, what if you got called out and there's a Halloween party happening, like a barn party, and there's just all these people dressed like ghosts and stuff, and you have to like put on your goggles to actually be able to see who's what. And they're all commenting on your outfit because they think that you're there, as a Halloween guest and stuff. And the whole place is crowded, but you have to like trap and contain this ghost without injuring people and stuff like that. So I was trying to envision this whole thing where you're just navigating this New York apple farm with just all this different things, and there's ghost partying in there too, and it's just fun. And I was thinking that's kind of like an interesting scenario. Ghostbusters having to use their equipment in such a way that it makes sense. It's not just finding unlockables and stuff like that. The other
It's an RGB state of mind, by the way, what you're kind of describing here, because they did go outside of the city in RGB at different times, whether it was for like a vacation or maybe not like purely outside of the city, but like maybe towards suburbs and some of the challenges they faced there. So I think that would have been like crazy awesome to see fleshed out, like if they could have been pulled off. And it's too bad we didn't get that.
Like there was a documentary that I watched with music by DJ Shadow, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but it was all about the people that live underneath New York City, like underneath the subway systems, like in the old subway systems. And I'm like, that whole area. Now we did do subway stuff in there, but there's just so much more that there's just so much more to New York than just the street level. That's why we went out to the island, which was nice. There's an island out there you can go out to. But having the extra time to go in there and make the hotel twisted, and then making sure that we got the library all broken up the way we wanted it, like that was really good for the game. If we would have shipped when we originally planned on shipping, it wouldn't have been received very well. We had an extra 6 months, and in that 6 months we busted our ass and did a lot of extra work to really make it look the way it looked. The presentation. There was stuff that didn't even make it that I wish. We had Ray's Occult a bookstore that you had to run through at one point with the Thanksgiving level. The whole Thanksgiving level got cut out just because we just couldn't do it in time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I remember reading about that. How like the whole team has to run into the occult bookstore, and then Ray has to find something in there that's like relevant to the mission or something like that. Like I thought that was really a cool idea because Ray's Occult, man, I've always wanted to see more of the inside of that place, and and you'll see a little bit of it hopefully in Afterlife. But man, that
I had somewhere on GB fans. I posted an image of like all the items I could find from that bookstore. There's a whole bunch of items that we created for it that shipped with the game, but you just can't access them unless you have a model viewer. That stuff was really cool. There was a lot of other things I really wanted to do. After we did a green light, we had the whole Stay Puft fight came from this prototype that we made where originally, like in the final game, the rookie gets put over the edge of the building and he's strapped and he's shooting Stay Puft that's coming at you and stuff. That was the final outcome. But the original level of that was you were leaning out of the back of the Ecto and they had you strapped on so the back door of the Ecto was open and you were leaning back and you would be able to rotate around and shoot ghosts and stuff that were all chasing the Ecto. We had this whole level blocked out. We had all the animation. I remember because Stay Puft was walking around in the city again, and you were trying to find out. He was attracting all these ghosts that were following him, and so you were having to follow him and capture all these ghosts. And sometimes you would end up in front of him, and sometimes he disappear. And there was a moment in time. I wish I still had this video. I know for a fact I don't have this video anymore, but we had a video of this whole playthrough. It was basically like playing Plants Your Dragoon or something. It's you're shooting stuff while everything's around you. But I remember there was a point in time where he does something and it breaks and this water comes up and it hits the Ecto and it pushes you through the first floor of a building and you get pushed through and then you come out on the other side and then everyone's like, oh crap, what happened? And you have to keep driving. So you're looking for Stay Puft. You don't have really control over the car. You would just have basic oh shit, we're coming up to a fork in the road where you want to go left or right kind of thing. But this was all like a canned sequence. And you were just along for the ride as the rookie, and they were dangling you out of the back, trying to hold you on the whole time. That sequence was really cool, and there was moments of time where you're like, where is he? And suddenly you see his foot just comes down, and then you swerve and have to go around him, and he's just going all around the city. And that was, man, that sequence was so cool. I don't know where that video went. It's just in the ether somewhere. I'm sure it's somewhere in a backup somewhere at Activision or something. But that was one of those levels, and so we had already created that scenario kind of gameplay, and so that's what led to us dangling him off the side of the building there.
Yeah,
because it's basically that. He's just there. You're just swinging and shooting at things are flying at you. That's where that came from.
Yeah. Wow, I almost wonder if that one should have been left up to a trial by combat where you picked a champion and whoever won got to pick their sequence. Because honestly, I'm kind of swaying toward the other one. I liked it. I liked being dangled over the building and doing that. But I mean, what you just mentioned to me is it
was cool.
Yeah. It's like, hey, you offered me the 6-inch sandwich. I kind of want foot long now. What's on here?
The whole idea, as we were working on the narrative, I was throwing out an idea of look, they learned from the first Stay Puft encounter. I'm like, Egon is not the type of person to not learn from that. I go, so what happens if this entire time you're trying to lure him and push him in a direction of the Brooklyn Bridge? I go, because what if Egon made a mega trap? And so there's a portion of it that's on the Brooklyn Bridge, a portion of it that's over here on this part of a building, and another, it's this big triangle that when you get them in the middle, they turn it on and it's they all start connecting, and then you trap them and you wear them down and you have to get them into your trap on the car or whatever. And so that's that's where I was trying to push the story on that. But then at the end of the day, it was just way too hard to do that level, because it was yeah, we had like the whole city. We extracted it from Google Maps, and we had the whole city that we were like
Yeah.
planning this whole thing on. It was just too much to load into the 360 memory, and it was just
Mhm.
wasn't worth it, because at the end of the day, it was only like a couple minutes worth of entertainment for basically like it was it was a lot of work. And so
Mhm.
that was one of the shifts that we had to make. The same with the Thanksgiving Day level. It wasn't that it wasn't, we couldn't render all. I did a lot of work to be able to render like 5,000 characters on the screen, but it and we even had like tech demos where a ghost would appear and people would run away from it and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And but it just came down to just it just wasn't fun. It was not fun. But you were supposed to
Mhm.
be. We have all the. I have another image on GB Fan somewhere that shows you all the parade floats and stuff. And so the Ghostbusters would
Yep.
run, and they would jump on this one parade float, and as they're going, they're all shooting, and everyone's like, "Yay, this is great! Yay, Ghostbusters!" And they're all like, they're thinking it's part of the show and stuff, and you're all like just trying to trap all these ghosts and whatnot, and meanwhile you're just destroying everything, and people are cheering and applauding. Some people are scared and stuff, and you had a band. I even had my old high school band record music. Like I have all this music uh, of marching bands and stuff that we had, so that we can have them play and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And just didn't get to that, unfortunately. I think that would have been a lot of
Mm.
fun. Yeah, it was there's so much cool stuff that doesn't get seen, and it sucks. When it gets cut, yeah, it sucks. But like I said before, we're all just making a product, and at the end of the day, you just have to make the product that you have the best you can. And yeah, I'm pretty happy that we did.
But no, that's cool, dude. Like, because I remember seeing the tech demos
Mhm.
or the tech displays that you guys did, or showcases of the Thanksgiving level, and just
Mhm.
how many people you could populate on screen at one time and have them independently, do things of each other. And that was one of those things that I always wondered about, just how much more bandwidth did the video game for Ghostbusters have?
Mhm.
Because you've mentioned this before, like in your, it's like on your LinkedIn, it's on other pages that you've done, that you love to test, systems to their limits. And I mean, was there anything else that you could really do with the video game like that you could, not, I wouldn't say, go as far as you could without breaking it?
Yeah, I mean, the crowd system was something I was really proud of. The owner of Terminal Reality and I worked really hard on that. And The Golem system was the other system that I made with him and one of the other programmers. So whenever you're fighting those golems and they get created by
Mhm.
all the physics objects, that we
Yeah.
Oh,
were
yeah.
pretty passionate about. And at the time, I was character lead, but I was also really big into tech art and just pushing the limits. Always about challenges for me. And back in Blood Rain 2, we had some golem monsters that were created out of roaches, and but they had to be giant roaches because we couldn't render as many on the screen as possible. And so we just explained
Yeah.
it narratively. Oh, they're radioactive roaches or whatever. I don't know. But that was the explanation there. But that tech that we created for that was something that I always had in the back of my mind. And then when we were working on Ghostbusters, they wanted, it was in the script, it was kind of ambiguous, but it was like, oh, we want a monster that's made of the environment or something. And so I talked with the owner, and I was just like, you know, we did that tech back in on the PlayStation 2. Like, what can we do with it now? And so he's like, oh, that's a good idea. Let's make a prototype. So we made a prototype, and I was like, okay, so this works. I'm like, so how can we push this even further? And so we started just, we just made the craziness that was the golem system for Ghostbusters 2. We had some golems that looked very specific ways, and so they would always look a certain way. And then we had other golems that were dynamic, so they were just formed randomly. Everything was breakable, so you're breaking stuff and it's just falling and flying everywhere. And then when something falls off, it pulls
Yeah.
something else from the environment. We had golems that had very specific weak spots and stuff that you would yank out, and then the
Mhm.
whole golem would just explode. All that stuff was just, I wrote a whole document over how we should do it, and working with a programmer, um, uh, Jennifer, she, I worked with her on that, and we formed this document. And then between us three with the owner, Mark, we created this whole system. It was not easy at the time because the tools were still pretty primitive to do this type of work. But I think at the end of the day, it paid off, and we had some really cool Golem stuff in there. Um, I'm also at the point where I'm like, well, what does that mean now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I would love to in a future project explore that again. Like, hey, you know, I did this back in Blood Rain 2, then I did it again in Ghostbusters. Let's do it again,
Yeah.
and push it even further. And that might be something I might push for in a future thing. I just always love that tech. But the crowd system was also something the owner and I were just like, how many people can we put on screen? And we got it to about the illusion, because it's always an illusion in games. But it was we had the illusion of like 5,000-6,000 people on screen, and it was just pretty seamless. You know, we had the whole library demo where you walk out and everyone's waving, and you would look out and you would just see just thousands of people in New York walking around in the distance, people cheering and all that stuff. It was all smoke and mirrors, but we then said, well, what if you're running down the sidewalk, right? Like, so then we took that and we made it to where the people are actually walking. Everyone was randomized and colorized, and they would get out of your way if they would see you running and stuff like that. Sometimes they see you running, be like Ghostbusters, or they would comment on you and stuff. And you know, that was a lot of fun. And so a lot of times, even in, you know, since moving on from Terminal Reality back in the day, you know, I would show off those documents because I was real proud of making those documents and those systems. And you know, it just goes to show, like, I was just like, yeah, this is the kind of artist that I am. You know, we make systems. I'm not afraid to talk to programmers and whatnot. And, you know, it's fun. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoy that stuff.
I was gonna say, I honestly would love to see. I mean, not just speaking selfishly, of course. You know, it would be awesome to see these things fleshed out. But you know, I am surprised at this point there's not like a documentary out there, because, you know, the Ghost Heads did do. Was it literally called Ghost
Was
Heads?
it just called Ghost Heads? Yeah, I think it was just called Ghost Heads. Yeah.
There was the Ghost Heads documentary that came out. It focused, you know, like documentary style on like 3 or 4 different sets of fans. And I mean, you haven't been approached about this yet by anybody to like go through the, you know, like the dev journals of this or anything?
Can't remember why I wasn't approached for Ghost Heads. Who directed that? Was that Sony? Because Sony did one. And I
don't. Yeah. Let me take a look.
I can't remember because I did bring that up.
Brendan Mertens.
Yeah, so that's okay. So I'm friends with him on Facebook. I can't remember why. I think it was I just wasn't around at the time. I may have been in Brazil or something. I can't quite remember, but I remember for Ghost Heads, 'cause that's the one that's fan made.
Yeah.
Because there was one that was fan made, and then there was one that was studio made by Sony. And I know I wasn't going to get invited for the Sony one because we make video games. We're down here, but I can't remember why. I want to say it was a scheduling conflict on that, or it was one of those that I came around too late or something. I can't remember. I remember there was talk that came up from it. Proton charging. I've always been interested in going out to proton charging, but it's one of those conventions. I believe it moves around, and so it's just never. I've just never been able to hit it. But I have like a whole hard drive, of just stuff that's just like, hey, let's open up the hard drive and just take a look. And I got documents of early scripts and stuff. I got all the Bill Murray audio that wasn't put in the game. I got just a lot of stuff that I think the fans would absolutely be go gaga over if we wanted to make a sequel. And again, we just had that blockade there that just wouldn't let us make a sequel. And we lost Harold in that time, and now it's just like, what are you gonna do, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, like I was talking to a couple of my friends, Hank Braxton and stuff. He's a filmmaker. I was always telling him, I'm like, we can make a movie. Like, I have the engine for Ghostbusters. We just need someone that can script. And once you can script, like, we can make a movie. I have everything. What's Sony gonna do, right? Who cares? Like, let's just make one, right? And they can do a cease and desist, but they don't need to know until it's released, right? And then just put it out, and then it's on the internet forever, and it'll be forever. But but it's easy to do. I forever have, Harold Ramis at least will forever exist in the game, and if anyone
Yeah.
ever was up for the challenge of making a new movie, well, we have the model, right? And we could just make a new model, and
Mhm.
there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential there to do something. It's just, it's gonna, someone just needs to do it. I have I put my stamp on Ghostbusters, and it's fine if I never revisit it, but it would be nice to do it again. I
Yeah.
I enjoyed my work on it, but if I never make another Ghostbusters game, that's also fine too.
Yeah.
I got to do something that not a lot of people are able to do,
Mhm.
and I'm happy about it. I put myself into the game. Like I'm just one of the security guards, and so it's just
That's right.
That's awesome.
That's right.
Mhm.
yeah. They wanted us to put some Sony douchebag executives in there, and I was like, no, I'm working over the weekend to get this done. I'm putting
Mhm.
myself in it, and the senior character
Damn
artist, we're
right.
putting ourselves in it. Like, I'm sorry, we're not doing this for some rich asshole to get their image in the game. No,
Mhm.
And for them to never even
yeah,
See
play the
it,
game or
'cause they're not gonna play
appreciate
the
the
damn
property.
game. Mhm.
yeah,
Exactly.
they don't give a shit.
Pound sand.
So whatever, that's why originally it was originally supposed to be uh it was supposed it made no sense at first because it was supposed to originally be Dan Aykroyd and Harold Ramis, but aged
Yeah, like
up, like the way
older.
they look.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's why the
Yeah.
security guards are Dan and Harold. But
Yeah.
then they were like, yeah, that would be weird. So then they were like, oh, well, here's some Sony guys. Let's put them in there. And so we regulated them to the elevator scene, I think. And those might be different people, actually. Yeah, those are different people. There's an elevator scene with two guys in the
Yeah.
background. Those are Sony or Activision guys. I can't remember.
Mhm.
And so they wanted them to be security guards. And I was like, no, screw that. We're not doing that.
No.
Then there
Mm-mm.
was the
Hmm.
Ghost Hunter guys that we actually built.
That's right.
Yeah, I posted up a photo up of that stuff on GB Fans, but they never got put into the game.
Were they supposed to be the elevator guys?
Um,
And
yes,
then they swap them out?
yes, they put the other executives in there, but I can't remember why. And I talked to what's his name about it, the main guy, the bald guy, about it, but he doesn't remember it. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, man. And I like showed him the photos, and he's like, I don't remember that. And I was like, yeah, you guys actually sent us photos of you guys, like they sent photos of their turnarounds of the face and all that stuff, but he just doesn't remember it. But we were going to use them for multiplayer, but then that got scrapped. I created the ethereal Ghostbusters from RGB for multiplayer, but that got scrapped. We
Mhm.
created a couple other heads for. I'm a playable character. Like you can actually, if the art is in there, you can actually replace the multiplayer body or head with my head. There's a bunch of stuff that didn't make it. The women were playable characters
Mhm.
too, but they came in too late for us to get it working properly.
Mm.
But yeah, there was so much stuff that we did that just never saw the light of day.
Oh, hey, if you ever want to pair up for cover some of that, if
Mhm.
you haven't been approached for it, I think we'd be more than happy to like literally take our shot at a documentary.
Mhm.
And because I mean that's kind of the spirit of our show too, is to shed light on on properties that we really appreciate, and not letting, because we're in that part of history now where we're the generation that remembers maybe one or two before us, right? And some of that stuff can get lost so fast to the point that it can disappear for a very long time. And so even though 2009, 2006, it doesn't sound like it's that long ago, or actually in my head I'm like, yeah, it is a long time ago, but
A little bit. Yep. Mhm.
it's getting to that point where yeah, we could lose history if we're not careful about it. And so yeah, dude, we'd love to somehow help facilitate something with this. And yeah,
Yeah,
we just love the fact you're willing to share it.
yeah. I started
Mm-hmm.
working on Ghostbusters, the game, 15 years ago.
Wow.
Over 15, so
Wow.
it's like 15.
Wow.
At the beginning of
Mhm.
2001, it was 15 years ago.
That's
Yeah, and the
crazy.
game came out 2009, so that's what,
Mhm.
12 years ago it came out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeesh.
Wow.
Yeah, it's nuts. I
Yep.
mean, all this time. And I'm like one of the only people that backed anything up. Like, you know, they were lucky that to do the remaster, that they had located a repository for it. But outside of that, like, I'm the only person, and I'm pretty sure they don't have access to a lot of the stuff that I do. Like I said, with all these recent Blood Rain remasters that they're doing, it's only because I had it.
Yeah.
No one else did, and so that's the only way that that's working out. And I mean, you know, I have the only existing copy of Demonic. You know,
Yeah.
that got lost to time, and the servers that they were on crashed. The tapes corrupted and everything. So, you know, I fired it up the other day, and I was like, "Thank God this actually works." And I'm trying to figure out what to do with it, but you know, all the levels are broken. You can play them kind of, and it's a mess. But it's one of those things where people saw it on Grandma's Boy, and they're like, "I wonder what that was." And it's like, well, it was a game.
It was an actual game, yeah.
And I'm the only person that I know that has that. No one has that on drives anywhere. That was lost time, and so that's the only thing that I have. So if my hard drive fails, you know, it's gone.
It's gone.
Wow.
Crazy.
I have considered putting it up on cloud storage just to back it up, and I might do that with a couple of these, like Ghostbusters. I'll probably need to update it or to back it up somewhere secure that has frequent maintenance and backup.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy. Not a lot of people do that. There's a lot of projects that go lost to time. We were working on a Call of Duty type game between Aeon Flux and Ghostbusters that was lost to time, and it was like this whole insurrection type thing. You were with a caravan going down like this somewhere in Afghanistan or something, and have all these insurgents come out, and you know, it's just a big Call of Duty type game, and that's gone to time. There's
Wow.
that was fairly decent too. That was a really okay game. There was, like I said, the Star Wars demo that we did is lost to time. That was a PSP demo that I did with what's her name? The blue Twi'lek. I can't remember what her name is. Yeah, it's not Sakura. It's I can't remember her name. Anyways, she's one of the Twi'leks, Jedi's.
Yeah.
We did this whole PSP demo where you're in the Death Star and you're running around, you're mowing down you know, stormtroopers and stuff. You get to the bay, and you know, the TIE fighters up landing and everything. You have this big fight with Darth Vader. It was just made up, but it was again, that will never be seen. Our Metal Slug demo would never be seen. Before I arrived at Terminal Reality, they had like a Hulk demo that eventually became the Incredible Hulk game. They did a demo pitch for that, and that was a really cool slice of history there with, you know, the Hulk running around and trashing stuff. What other demos did we make? I mean, every studio has these demos that people make and just go nowhere. The original Blood Rain prototype, I wish I had a copy of that. I mean, if I could go back, I backed up a lot of stuff, but if I could go back, I would have backed up even more. Yeah, just because you know, I never thought, it's just me. I'm a klepto with digital information, so I just have hard drives with just stuff. I have like my first drawings from the Art Institute and everything, just all backed up. I just keep amassing all my data, and I should have just done that. But I was more like, I'm only backing up the stuff that I worked on and not necessarily everything. But I should just back up everything.
I mean, I can respect keeping a bunch of stuff, you know, around you. You can see behind me here. I mean, I've got collectibles. I've got collectibles from. Do I dust? Actually, I do keep up on that. Surprisingly, because I've got some, you know, San Diego Comic-Con exclusive stuff up here that like you just can't get anymore. That, or if you do, you're cashing out a retirement fund to pay for it. Yeah. But I mean, no, I've actually got protective stuff on most of the collectibles here, so or at least the high dollar items are protected. But yeah, I mean, I really appreciate it, Jesse, because the gaming documentaries have not really been like widely produced until, I would say, even within the last like 5 years or so. Like, we've seen some indie developers that got stuff like the what is it, the Super Meat Boy indie developer that made that game. Like, they've got like, I think it's like 3 or 4 people that they showcased in that one.
Yeah, it was indie game the movie.
Then indie in the movie. There's the console wars.
There's a lot.
like,
There's a lot of them, but they've all come up within the last 5 years. Like
yeah,
there's a lot. I collect those, so I have a ton of them. But it is something that has come up, and even though there is quote unquote a lot, there's not actually a lot of them. I mean, there's less than 20, right? Like there's probably like
yeah.
10 or
Right.
15 of them at the most.
And when they come up, I'm right there. Like I'm just sitting down, like going, I remember a lot of this, but man, am I happy they're covering it, because yeah, it's blink of an eye, it's gone. And I mean, I don't want to see that history get lost. It's
Yeah.
just
Like-
it's so easy to consume.
Like the cool thing is that Gearbox kind of believes in that, and so it was like a treat when I first started Gearbox. I just started exploring the network drives, and it's everything they've ever done since the day they started. And there's so much stuff up there that will never see the light of day, but they're full, almost complete games. So many demos. There's a couple that have leaked recently, but by people putting up their portfolio and stuff finally. But it's just fun to see all that stuff, and that's one of the things I've enjoyed. Like when I go work at a different studio, is trying to see their network and seeing all the past stuff that they've done. It's just crazy. It's absolute madness. How much money gets wasted in the game industry, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you have to go try to find Damien Clark's like full recording of all the hand, but I would.
But if you know where
It's
it
up
is,
there. Oh no,
it's got to be there. Yeah, because he largely kind of brought this is from what I've read and what I've consumed, but from what it sounded like, a lot of the sarcastic and snarky like energy was just him. It was in him, and he kind of brought it to the role. And it would be interesting to hear how the recording may have changed from like, you know, hitting the red button until the end. And I mean, thousands of lines, I'm sure plenty of hours that there's to listen to there. And like you mentioned, I mean, who knows how much money was poured into it.
Yeah, like when he recorded some gold, and we had to choose the best lines, and it was so difficult to choose them because he doesn't really read the script. He just gets the general direction, and then he kind of glances over and he makes stuff up as he goes. And so like no two lines were ever really the same. You know, there was some lines where we're like, yeah, you have to say this specifically because this is training the character. So he would read those and just kind of do different inflections and the way he would pronounce words or whatever. But there's just some that were just like crazy, just Bill Murray coming up with stuff, and that's just stuff that, you know, no one's ever heard. I don't know if they'll ever hear it. One of these days, I think probably when we get to the 15th anniversary of its release, I was planning on probably releasing stuff. I know when we get to probably next year is going to be the 10th year anniversary of Star Wars Connect. I'm going to start releasing a lot of stuff for that. You know, NDAs be damned, but the Ghostbusters, I'm planning on doing something. Probably, I guess it would be next year, maybe 2023, somewhere in there, whenever the 15-year anniversary is. 2024, I guess.
Cool.
I'm probably gonna just release a whole lot of stuff.
So long as you don't disclose your location on this recording, there's someone let know to find it when you do get served the NDA violation paper.
I've done it in the past. Like I've done all that stuff. I just like there's a lot of stuff like which you had mentioned before. Like you work real hard on something and then it gets shut down, right? Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next project. But man, it would be really cool for people to see this. You know, like, and I think that there's a certain point where it's just silly. Like all these secrets we have in the game industry, and it's like, well, why? We're just making video games. Let's, you know, who cares? You know, it'd be cool. Show some of these videos. That's awesome. You know?
Just like the Spider-Man demo that got released. I think that was was it the proposed Raimi third or quote unquote fourth movie, I think it was going to be. If he made the fourth movie in the franchise, they're already working on the game for that, and that got leaked recently.
Oh, that's cool.
And you got to kind of see what,
that was in that.
You got to kind of see what those ideas were like, and yeah.
Oh, was that part of that big mega leak? I can't remember.
I mean, it was. I can't say for sure, but I know it was recent. I mean, it wouldn't last like maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
And
because it was a massive mega leak that there was some stuff that I worked on that was releasing that had a lot of early prototypes and unfinished stuff. There was a lot of Dreamcast stuff, and it was really neat.
Yep, and this is
Makes
all very likely Tom Holland's fault somehow. That he just spoiled the whole
I
thing.
specifically saw stuff of him being like relieved that someone else did it, and it wasn't him. He was like, "Oh, thank
I was like, God,
God!"
somebody else is spoiling Spider-Man stuff, and it's not me.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, cool.
But yeah, that's
Well,
you know, I love seeing that stuff. I absolutely love it. There's so much stuff out there that people would just love. It's just curiosities, right? Um, the for instance, you know, any of those demos, you know, who cares if they're broken?
Hmm.
Just let people play them because it just scratches an itch of people be like, wow, this is cool. It's like some kind of weird Mandela effect where you're just like, this, I could have been playing this, you know, this feels like it's just so neat to see all that stuff. So um, I'm all for it. I'm all for releasing
yeah.
that stuff. You know, release the Snyder cut and all that. Um, get it out there. I'm very much happy to push for all that stuff being released. So I'm happy.
Well, it reminds me of Thrill Kill. Do you remember that for the PlayStation? How it was
Mhm.
a fully developed game. It gets to like just before release, and then they find out, you know, this is way too violent for anyone to play,
Yeah.
and then it gets completely pulled. And then the only way you could get it was if you burned it onto a CD. You know, it had the old PS1 hack where like you insert a spring into the unit, and then that was it. That was the only way you could play it. And now people are still finding that game and going, "Wow, I wish I could have played this because
Hmm.
I was just as sadistic back in '96 as I am now."
Yeah,
Yeah,
our VFX artist at Terminal Reality for Ghostbusters stuff, he was really into Thrill Kill, and he had a copy of it back in when we were working like Aeon Flux or whatever back in the early 2000s, and that's where I was
yeah,
first introduced to that.
yeah,
I mean, again, this whole Desert Bus thing that I did for Penn and Teller, like that was another one of those too, where it was kind of vaporware and it never really was released until someone leaked the ROM, and you know
yeah,
now they use it to raise money for charity and stuff like that. And shit, that was part of my career now, you know. um
yeah,
there's just a lot of stuff like that, oh man, the amount of stuff that I've seen, not even at the studios that I've worked at, but like the game that Ensemble was working on forever, that was like their third party sorry, their third person action adventure game, went through like 8 to 12 years of iteration, and it just kept evolving and evolving. And I remember seeing all the concept art for all that stuff, and I was just like, wow, this looks really cool, but
Hmm.
it just never was never it just had so much money that they just never had to finish it, and it just stayed there forever.
wow,
um, at least we saw Titan come out as Overwatch. You know, that was going to be
yeah,
vaporware forever. uh,
yeah,
you know, all anyone's feelings aside, you know, at least Duke Nukem Forever finally came out. You know, that was in danger of never coming out.
Hmm.
Hmm.
And there's like 3 other versions of that game out there that you literally could find executables for, because they were complete games, but you know they just restarted it because the people there saw something shiny and they're like, we need to have that in the game. Let's start over. And
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, and I don't know where those are, but those I only know because I've talked to people. I'm friends with people that were working on it, and they you know they know that stuff's there, and they know that they finished the game. They finished several games, or at least got to a point where it's almost finished. So I don't know if those excuses will ever find their way public, but you know that stuff exists. I mean, for the most part, some of that stuff was smoke and mirrors in the early trailers, but for the most part, you know, there was levels that you can go and play and do all that stuff with. And
Oh.
who knows, maybe
yeah.
maybe someday.
Cool. Well, hey,
Hmm.
if you do want to get into like filmmaking, or you know, this could be that in route. You know, maybe we could dramatize some of these stories into you know,
Hmm.
into like a live action depiction. You know, almost. I'm thinking like how like Moneyball was created, right behind like the sabermetrics and like the Oakland A's and how they built those teams out.
Yeah,
You could do the same thing with video game development stories. I think, you know,
yeah.
let's see what Brad Pitt's
Hmm.
doing. You
It's
know,
yeah, it's just comes down to like you know, have so many friends in the industry. A lot of us, you know, started up together. So I have a lot of
Hmm.
friends that are 15, 20 years and you know even more. but there's still a lot of like I don't really give a damn, but there's a lot of people that just refuse to talk about stuff, especially like in front of cameras. Like when we go to GDC, oh yeah, we'll talk about everything. But some of those guys are still
Mhm.
scared because you just
Mhm.
never know. Like yeah, like you know what? If I go and I release stuff for Star Wars Connect next year, and yeah, Disney could easily come down and just be like pursuing you, right? And it's like oh, fantastic, right? And so it's one of those things like it's scary, so you just have to do it in a time where no one cares. That's why I wait so long, because it's just if I have been I released a game, one of the first games I worked on, it was called Remission, and it was all about teaching kids about cancer, right? Like kids that have cancer, so it teaches them what's going on in their body and stuff like that. And that was my first project at Terminal Reality. We
Yeah.
didn't get to finish it, but it got handed off to another studio. But we didn't really know that. We just knew that the game was canceled. So I was like, okay, well, screw it. I'll just put this art up on my
Mhm.
website. And it wasn't until they actually released the game that I got a letter from them saying, hey, can you take down all the art from your website, because all the Google searches are going to your site first. And
Oh,
and
wow.
so when they go there to look at it, they see like all the blood rain, big booby girls, and all that stuff, and they're like, it's just not in line with our vision. So I had to pull it down. I haven't shown it
Mhm.
since, but I'm probably going to put it back up at some point because it was fun to work on. And of course, that was back
Yeah.
in 2005 or whatever, whenever it came out. But
Mhm.
I'm sure they don't care about it now.
Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's at any point like
Mhm.
you can get the cease and desist to get it pulled down, and so it gets a little scary. And so when you start dealing with large brands, like if you're starting to deal with like Marvel and stuff like that, then it gets really scary. So Ghostbusters, if Ghostbusters was still dormant, like not getting all these new movies and toys and all that stuff, I probably would have released this stuff a couple years ago. Or because if you notice, like in GB fans, I was taking photos and I was always releasing stuff, and I was always just like, hey, check this out, this is something new for you guys to look at. And then it wasn't until like they started announcing the new movies at the time, like back in 2016 and stuff, that I was like, oh, I'm gonna stop, because I know how this works. So I'm
Yeah.
just gonna stop doing that. And then now I'm just kind of like in this gray area with Afterlife coming out, and it's like I'll probably have to wait a couple years after that,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
just to
Yeah.
see, kind of feel that out. But yeah, at some point,
Yeah. And I know that
Yeah.
I guess that's gotta be really sucky that, like, being honestly, like, what the work you're doing does belong to a studio, a different property, but, like, it's still your work, and you don't get to share it the way you want to.
Yeah, and some
Yeah.
studios are good about that. Most studios are
Mhm.
really good at having you show it, but at the end of the day, it's
Mhm.
like you have to use this type of framing. You have to use this font. We have to You have to show us every single
Mhm.
image, and then we'll say yes or no, kind of thing. And that's just part of the industry, and that's not a big deal for me. But it is one of those where you just have to be careful. So, like I said, one day I'll do it. Yeah, and I actually want to do it better at a proton charge. I'd rather do it in real
Oh,
life,
yeah.
because posting images up on the internet is fine, typing out text is fine, but
Mhm.
I rather have like this type of communication, back and forth, where I can be like, hey, check this out. This is really cool, right? Like,
Mhm.
can I have any questions? Oh yeah, yeah. Let me see this. And like I opened up the engine, right, and I have the firehouse here, and it's just like I can take photos of this firehouse and post them online, but someone, if I'm like actually flying through this firehouse and looking around, someone might catch something and be like, hey, what about that? And I'm like, oh yeah, I have a story about that or whatever. That's a lot of
Mhm.
fun.
I mean, that's why I think these video game documentaries are going to keep going, because
Mhm.
there's just a lot of value in the creative process and getting to hear about what didn't work, what did work. And I've referenced the Together Heart, like podcast slash like reunion show that Josh Gad did during like
Mhm.
peak COVID, and
Yeah.
you reunite all of these actors from major films, and they're all sharing stories that no one had heard,
Hmm.
and some of them are 15, 20, 30, in some cases almost 40 years old, and these are things that no one gets to hear about. And so
Yep.
yeah, I think there's a vein absolutely to tap into here that people would love to see this stuff from, and hopefully it's not going to inspire a legal battle from anyone, but I mean,
Mhm.
we support it. You've got 3 people
Yeah.
who'd sign that change.org
Mhm.
petitions, so let's
And it
do it.
would be
Sweet.
it would be fun to get, like, a video game documentary too that's not just a, like, "We're going to cover the history of all the video games over, like, 5 episodes," or something, so you could actually have
Yeah.
time to focus in on a specific either game or game series that you've actually loved for just one documentary.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
Jesse.
all the
Yes.
extra
Yes.
time you put in, that is amazing. Mhm.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Like I said, at some point, if you want to do some more in the future, we can easily set that up, and we can do a
Mhm.
I can open up the engine and fly through stuff and be like, hey, yeah, let's take a look at this, let's take a look at that, and
Heck yeah.
we can
Oh, so
take a look at all
cool.
this stuff.
Hell
Yeah.
yeah.
I got a lot of
Yeah.
stories, and
Love.
I'm always happy to share.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we'd love to have you back and do that again. That'd be sweet.
Seriously,
Yes.
love it, man. We absolutely love it. Thank you so much, and let us know if you'd ever want to revisit. We will more than happy to do it.
Definitely. All right, I will talk to y'all later.
All
All
right.
right. Thank you,
so
Jesse.
much.
Thanks,
Have
Jesse.
a good night.